Good morning. My name is Marianne Wilensky. I'm the museum director for the Township of Ocean Historical Museum. Right now we have a new exhibit. It's called Vote for Women, New Jersey and Beyond. When the executive board for the museum decided to do this exhibit in this year, 2020, we also decided that it would be nice to interview and speak with some of the first women councilpersons in the Township of Ocean to get their impressions of what the town is like, what it was like when they were in office. So our first guest today is former councilwoman Donna Schepiga. Donna and I have known each other for any number of years, more than we may want to admit to. And so we're going to start with that today. Good morning, Donna.
Good morning, Marianne. It's nice to be here. I'm very pleased.
So, Donna, tell everyone about how long you were a councilwoman.
I was a councilwoman since 2003. 16 years I was on council. And I ran 4 times with 4 different groups of people. Let's see, the first time I ran with Bill Larkin, Dave Hyers, Stu Chavez, Chris Siciliana, and myself. And we were opposed by another group of people, and that was, they were known as the Clean Ocean Team, and that was Joan Damaris, Michael Greenberg, Robert Morley, Edward Rodman, and John Varelli, and then of course Brian Lefferson, and he was running for the Independents for Ocean. That was back in 2003.
So there were 2 tickets at that time.
2 tickets, yep.
And when people voted, would they have to vote for an entire ticket?
No. That's what a lot of people don't understand. They have to vote for 5, should vote for 5 people. And they don't have to, any 5 people they can vote for on the ticket. Doesn't matter what order they're in or anything else, they can vote for 5 people, okay, whether it's on one ticket or the other.
So maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about how you found the Township of Ocean. I know you weren't born and raised here.
No, I was not. I was born in Pennsylvania, mm-hmm, and went to Monmouth University. Or now it was Monmouth College, and I went to Monmouth University. It's drilled into my head so much now, university. So I went to Monmouth College, and at Monmouth College I met my husband, and he's from Elizabeth, and we moved to Elizabeth because I was working for Evelyn's Seafood Restaurant in Belmar. They decided to go to Elizabeth and open up a new restaurant. And when they did, they needed somebody to be there to help them open it, run errands into New York City to the architect, go to Newark to do whatever. And so I was doing bookkeeping for them, so I was keeping track of all of this. And it was working fine. It was beautiful. I stayed there for, up in Elizabeth, I was there for, I think, about 3 years. And then I went to another place. And eventually I said to Henry, I can't stand living up here anymore. Henry's my husband. Told him I couldn't stand living up here anymore. And so in 1982, we moved down here to Wayside. I'm sorry, to Wanamassa. I've been in 3 sections of the town. So it was Wanamassa. But in college, I lived over in Continental Gardens for a while. And we went to the very first Italian-American festival they had when they had the chicken dinner. And it wasn't at the park that we know. It was over by where the soccer fields were.
So still at what we call now Joe Play Park.
Yep.
Then it was still referred to
as Deal Test Site.
Okay, and they had a chicken dinner.
That was the first in 1976.
Wow. Okay.
So
1976. So you went to that.
Yep, we went to that, and that started our liking for Ocean Township. And so when I made my demand saying, and it's true, the smell from Linden reached Elizabeth, and I couldn't take it anymore. And I told them, we're going to get a divorce or we move. And so we came down here, and basically the only place we looked was Ocean Township.
Interesting. That's very interesting. So you moved here. You first lived in Wanamassa.
Yep.
Then you moved to Oakhurst, I know, because I live in Oakhurst.
Yep, we moved to Oakhurst.
And then eventually to Wayside.
Yep.
So you, at that time, there were definitely defined areas
Yep.
of the township.
Yep.
And you started it with Wanamessa and kept on going.
Yeah. We had a little 3-bedroom house and 1 bathroom. I mean, there was only 2 of us, but still no, 1 bathroom. So the next one, we needed 2 bathrooms and we needed a garage. And that's what we had. So we kept moving up. And then we had my son, and we needed Kyle, and we needed more room. So that's why we moved to Wayside. And we wanted a ranch. And we couldn't find a ranch around here that was for sale in Oakhurst.
So you went from moving to the township, and then at some point, how did you get interested in doing more for the township? Was there something with the Italian American Association?
Henry joined the Italian American Association, and he became an active member. And I met a lot of interesting people, and former judge of Ocean Township, Mike Snigliaro and his wife, and prominent architect, Sam Abate and his wife, and many others, but they were the ones that did the Italian American Festival. And so I started helping, and little did people know that the wives did the paperwork, and the wives did this, and the wives did that. So I started taking that on, and I had a computer. And back in the early, mid-'80s, you didn't have computers. Very few, just offices. So, but I had a computer, and so it worked out nicely that I went along with the computer, and I ran the festival for 7 to 8 years. Before I got on council. My last year of running the festival was 2003 when I got on council.
So I met you, though, through the Community Celebration Committee.
Yep.
So long ago that I believe that your son, Kyle, I remember him being at meetings, and we held them at the Old Italian American Club on Cindy Lane.
Yep.
And I remember him running around, and I think he was about 3 years old.
Yeah.
Because he was younger than my kids.
Yeah.
So that was number of years ago.
Yep.
What made you decide to start doing something not just for the Italian American Association, but for what would eventually be a township-wide organization?
I was involved with the Shade Tree Commission, and I was involved with the Mary Pat and her committee.
Mary Pat
Napolitani, her committee, and I just got involved. I mean, I helped, and they asked me to do something, and I never said no. And it was nice because in 1995, I used to be working up in Westfield, and I quit because my son was 5. He needed me at home. I couldn't take him to school and do all the activities of school that needed to be done. And so I quit, and I started working part-time. I worked part-time as a bookkeeper. I worked part-time as fundraising for a organization in town. And from there, I just started continuing. I was on the PTAs in Dow Avenue, then Wayside. I was intermediate school PTA, high school it wasn't PTA. It was,
you're right.
Yeah, it was parent something or the other, but
teacher student.
Yeah, something like that. I was on there. I held an office only in the intermediate school for fundraising. I wasn't as involved in the high school, but I did help start the Ocean Township men's or boys lacrosse team. That was new, and that was started in 2006, I think, 2005, 2006. So I was involved in that, and that's how I started getting more and more involved.
Give me a little history of the Community Celebration Committee from your point of view.
Community Celebration Committee was started by Mary Pat and our ex-mayor, Weldon. And we had a very interesting organization, and we did events for the town. We did a Memorial Day parade. We did a Memorial Day celebration, always trying to raise money. We did, we did St. Patrick's Day. Well, it wasn't St. Patrick's Day at the time. It was just a fundraiser, and it was usually in the spring of the year. Because the first year that we did it, I was with Dr. Chavez, Stu, and he was on council with me, and we decided to do a luau. And we did a luau the first year. Remember that? I have a picture. In fact, I have a picture of you at the luau. So I brought that with me. I knew you would enjoy seeing that. It was fun. It was a fun thing. And we raised the money. And from then on, we'll keep the price low. And we got people. And then eventually we started sponsors. And the sponsors are what really help to do all kinds of activities. I started, when I got on council, I started doing a fall fest. And that was because they used to have they used to get together once a year over at the pool complex. And they had all the town organizations, Environmental Commission, Shade Tree Commission, and they made little bird feeders out of plastic bottles, and there must have been 10, 15, 20 of them. But then every year it went down and down and down, and not as many people came. So I came up with the idea that if you have a fall fest for community organizations and also have vendors there selling things and a craft show, it would work much better.
So were you doing these activities by that time in your capacity as a councilwoman? Were you doing them just a continuation of what you'd done as a volunteer before?
It was a continuation of being a volunteer, because I was active on the council. I was involved with everything that we did on the council. One of the things that I like to remember is that we had a very bad flood over at Poplar Village.
The senior citizen community.
Yep. And we had a very bad flood there, and we had a lot of student volunteers help us clean out the houses that these people lived in. And there's an article about the students that helped that I brought with pictures. And they helped tremendously to clean that mess up. And then what we did was they moved back in. They did not move back in. And we closed it up. We got money for Green Acres. And that became Green Acres. And a lot of people were put into apartments that had lost their houses, and they stayed there until we built 777, which is Heritage Village. And we built that for
West
the
Park
seniors.
Avenue.
Yep, on West Park Avenue behind the post office. Mm-hmm. And we built that for the senior citizens. And we also just recently, before I got off council, we just recently gave to Poplar Village a plot of land for them to build. I believe they might be building like a community room. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to include some more housing or what, but they are going to be building something on that plot of land. But it's a way away from where the flooding was. And they don't have any more problems with homes being flooded out since we got rid of so many of the homes that were flooding and made it Green Acres.
So let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about you running for council. So This would be in 2003. Were you approached? Had you always wanted to be a public official?
I can't say I always wanted to, but Mary Pat decided not to run. And I said to her, and we talked, that I would like to run. And she said she thought that was a good idea. And so I was going to run by myself, and because I didn't know what else to do. And then she told me to talk to Mayor Larkin, and I did, and I told him I wanted to run. And they interviewed me. The rest of the people that were running interviewed me for about an hour, and a couple of days later they came back and said that I could run with them. And they didn't have anybody else at the time. They were thinking of other people who could run as the fifth person, but they hadn't figured out a fifth person. Okay. So that's how I got to run.
So you sort of took a proactive role in letting your interests be known.
Yes.
And so then you're on council. And I guess one of my first questions would be, what was the transition like from being a volunteer to being somebody that people knew, looked up to, and would go to with their problems and questions?
It just was like a flow. It just flowed right in. It wasn't a big change. It was a flow because still they didn't talk. Not as many. I never got as many phone calls as the guys always got about problems in town.
Any idea why? Do you think it's just that?
No. I think, me personally, I think it's because I was a woman. And they rather talk to a man and have them figure out what was wrong. I mean, I got my phone calls. By no means I didn't get phone calls. I did. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed helping people once they called me, or when they called, or stopped me in the grocery store or something and had problems. And I enjoyed helping and doing whatever I could for them.
So when you were first on council, it was a new position for you. Mm-hmm. There were, I guess, a couple of your running mates had been council people before that.
Bill Larkin had been, but Dave Hires was only on for like a year. Okay. Beforehand, I believe only a year. It could have been 2, but I think only a year. And then the 3 of us were new.
Okay. And so when you got there on council, were there assignments as to areas of interest or?
No, we didn't do that. We all went and did everything more or less together. Mm-hmm. We didn't have one person like doing recycling or one person. Now, we did have people. We had somebody on the Board of Adjustment. I'm sorry, the Planning Board. Mm-hmm. And I was a liaison with the communities, Clean Communities and the Shade Tree for a while. And I was involved with them. And Clean Communities was really enjoyable. I enjoyed that a lot.
Tell me why.
Why? Because I've always complained, and my biggest complaint has always been about how dirty Ocean Township gets. And with people throwing garbage out on the streets, on the roads. And I always hated that. And I always hated signs being put up and never taken down. And I've always complained about that. And you know that. You know me. And it's just as bad now as it ever was. And people just don't take the signs down. Do you think it's
because we have a lot of state and county roads and people that are not Ocean Township citizens have less concern? Or do you think it's just people in general?
I think it's people in general. I would love to blame it on people that aren't from Ocean Township passing by, but I really don't think I can blame them throwing the garbage out because I've seen it flying out of trucks, going to somebody's house to do stuff, or the garbage trucks and stuff like that.
So you've got these 2 committees that you are very interested mm-hmm. in. I was thinking a lot about the signage that you just mm-hmm. mentioned. So did you come up with some programs that would maybe work? I don't mean for necessarily taking down signs, but I do remember that you were instrumental in getting new identification signs.
Okay, Township of Ocean signs. I worked very hard on those. I worked for probably about 4 years to get new Ocean Township signs. They used to be with the Chamber of Commerce.
And we're talking about signs. Where would they be?
Welcome to Ocean. It would be as you come into Ocean Township. There's one on going south on Route 35. There's one going north on Route 35 as you enter the town. Mm-hmm. There's some on Bound Road, one on Cold Indian Springs Road. And now one over by Colonial Terrace.
Monmouth Road?
Yeah, one on Monmouth Road. See, you're scratching my memory here. But no, I worked very hard. The chamber had the signs, and they always had the signs paid for by an organization. And we wanted to keep that but it didn't work out that way.
Did they have as many signs?
No, they had a couple less signs, but it didn't work out that well working with them. And so I convinced the council that we would pay for them, and we bought them and paid for them. And I think they're very pretty, and we planted. I have made sure they put plantings underneath them and keep them looking nice all year round.
I think when you're talking about with the chamber, I suppose it's just difficult because they had every year somebody new being the caretaker.
Yes,
and
they
to get
did.
Continuity.
Yes,
that must have been...
yes, and I felt bad because I know that was a source of revenue for them. But we didn't want the signs up and down all the time. And they wanted to, that's what they wanted to do. And so we decided that we wouldn't have anybody sponsoring the signs.
I see.
We decided that as a council, we decided that we would pay for the signs.
So you have all these volunteer activities, because I assume you were still active with the Italian American Association. You were working with the PTAs, community celebration. How did you handle all that? Did you also work?
I worked part-time. I worked, I started working around 2004 in Ocean Township as a substitute teacher. And then some of the teachers, because of politics, the teachers, a lot of them quit, and they, for pension and for whatever other reasons, they quit. And I wasn't getting as many jobs, so I went to a girlfriend of mine, worked for Ranny, and called them, or she called the next day and told me to come in for an interview after I talked to her, and I've been there ever since, and that was about 2011, so I've been there 9 years.
Wow, okay.
So, and I work there part-time. I'm number one. I have to pat myself on the back. I'm the number one sub for. So
very good.
And I don't only do teaching. I do administrative assistant work when necessary to fill in for somebody. And I did about a summer's worth of work doing being a hostess as people came in and guided them to where they were supposed to go and answer phones and all that kind of stuff.
Shifting gears, let's go back to your council work. And so what would you say would be some of the things that you thought the council over your years, maybe the things that benefited the township most, things that you were involved with, things that were done during your tenure? The purchases of buildings or makeovers, zoning changes that might have been good for business.
Well, we did. We built the housing over behind the post office. We finished the gym.
The post office units replaced those that where people had been flooded out.
Yes, they have. And we did not start the gym. That was already in the works, but we did the groundbreaking for the gym.
The gym across
from the intermediate school on West Park Avenue. We kept Larkin Golf Course from being turned into housing. We bought that.
Wanamassa?
That's Colonial Terrace.
That's
yep.
Right.
Because it used to be called the Colonial Terrace Golf Course, right. And it was renamed the William Larkin Golf Course.
I forgot about the change.
Yeah, and we bought. Eventually, we ended up buying. We got the house with the deal to buy when we bought the golf course. We got the house. She had life rights to the house.
There's a house there on that.
Yes, there is. And I think we are getting that. If we didn't get it by the time I finished council, they should be having it about now, closing on that house. And we also, the property next door to it, we bought relatively not too long ago. And I don't know what they're going to do with that. We were thinking of putting some classes in there for art and stuff like that. Extra parking for the golf course that needs it. So those were that. We did that. Eventually we ended up getting and buying the building on Logan Road that was going to be a dorm. After all the lawsuits and everything else, nobody built anything in there. And they went back to their original owner. And we worked with them, and we ended up buying it. Don't know what's going in there. It was never completed. Some of the work was done, some isn't done in there. The school was talking about going over there, but I don't think they thought there was enough room for them in there. Oh my gosh, I have a complete mind blank now is what else we've done.
How about the tennis courts?
Oh yeah, the tennis courts on West Park Avenue. There were outdoor tennis courts there, and we leased the land to an organization for 20 years, and they built a great big indoor tennis center that Ocean Township can go to. It's paid. It's for 20 years. After 20 years, it reverts back to the town.
The building?
The building does. And the town can use it for tennis courts. They can use it for indoor soccer, indoor lacrosse. They can use it for whatever. If they don't use it for tennis all the time, but I believe right now they're still pretty busy with tennis all year long in there, that they haven't converted anything to any type of soccer practice courts or lacrosse practice courts. Also, they outdoor courts. They put in new outdoor courts for us, and they put the lights up. That was just recently finished.
So I see that combines your love for starting the lacrosse teams with now an indoor facility for I can give you one other thing that I know that happened while you were a councilwoman. Look around this room.
Oh, that's right.
Where did this building used to be?
This building here was up at the corner, okay, and it was moved down here.
But during your time,
we did the library
and the agreements with the museum, as in you were, we were the caretakers, the museum board, but it really is on township property.
Exactly.
And so you worked with those kinds of issues to see that it was a joint effort to make this really beautiful facility.
And then we had moved human services to the back, and we opened the library. That is just beautiful.
Yes.
And I like the extension of the library and the classrooms that are there, and the art gallery that's there. It's just beautiful. And I know someone that has a picture in there right now.
That could be true, but not much longer.
I know, but that picture is beautiful. I really liked it. I didn't get to your opening, but I did get there.
Thank you.
So it was very pretty.
If I remember correctly, you were also involved in advocating for the extension of sidewalks.
Yes, I did.
Give me an idea of what was your motivation behind that. I personally think it's fabulous.
Well,
because my kids grew up here.
My problem was that when you go from Eatontown to Ocean Township, right by my beautiful sign, all the grass is gone, and all you see is marks. And going all the way down the highway, you saw a footpath, and that's all you saw was a footpath. You didn't have sidewalks to walk on. And I kept saying, we need to put sidewalks in. And by putting sidewalks in, we got the sidewalks that the state went along with the sidewalks there, which was great. The state put the sidewalks in, which was great. But my other problem was we have to take care of the sidewalks we have. We have to make sure that you can walk on them so people don't walk in the street, because at this time they started with all these crosswalks and you could cross the street any place. But people were walking in the streets yet because the sidewalks were up and down and trees were there, and that was always a problem. I know up on Deal Road, my biggest problem was that there was a problem with water, the drainage. And so finally they made them all dig dry wells, and it's working. It wasn't, I know we haven't had bad winter yet, but knock on wood here, but there's no ice. There's no water all summer long. That whole sidewalk was dry.
So you're saying that before the drainage was making the sidewalks dangerous.
And so we've gone through different parts of the town that we've seen the drainage problems, and they are fixing or have fixed them already. And the other problem with it was the trees. The branches of the trees were hanging so low, you couldn't walk under them. So now I don't know how well the program's still working, but for a year and a half, they used to go after people and tell them they have to cut their trees down so that people can walk. Not cut the trees down, but cut the branches down so people could walk underneath them. Yeah, trim them. So I was happy that I did that.
I think that one of the challenges in the state of New Jersey for quite a while has been the providing low-income housing for a lot of people. And because New Jersey is relatively expensive for housing, it encompasses a lot of other people. I believe there were lawsuits that were filed.
We're still being, as far as I know, we're still being sued. We have, I think, one case that hasn't been settled yet. We're still working with the magistrate. No, I forget what her name is. She was our planner and told us how many units that we had to have. That hasn't been settled with the judge yet, that I know of. Okay, and you have to realize I haven't been on council since July 1st. So I don't know, I haven't seen or heard of anything being done with that
Were
yet.
there steps that the council took to try to alleviate some of the need, or?
We tried. We got some of it down. We didn't get all of it down. I don't remember the exact number we needed, but every time somebody builds puts more than one home up, or 5 homes or something like that in an area, I know that it has to have some COA housing in with it. And I do know that we have accounted for a lot of it. We started building on Cindy Lane.
Cindy Lane, which would be off of West Park Avenue?
Yes, yep. Okay. We built back there. We have, I don't know how many, but a lot of it is COA living back there. And that helps to meet our demand. They're putting some on, they were supposed to put some by the West Park auto wreckers, but I understand that isn't cleaned up 100% yet to put anything on
Some
them.
environmental issues.
Yeah, we still have environmental issues back there. We got that land and didn't have to pay for it because they went bankrupt or something, and you probably know more about it than I did, but we did get that piece of property, but we have to clean it up, and that's what we're still working on, cleaning up. And also there was another piece of land really close to West Park Avenue back in that area that they're going to start building on too, and have some incorporated in there for COA. But like I said, the judge hasn't made a decision yet if we're good or not.
So, because you were part of all that decision-making, not necessarily the final selection, but that decision-making for that, you were in the room where it happens.
Yes.
That you've talked about recently. What did you find the most difficult issues to be in trying to grapple with that part of the decision-making? What was hardest to work on?
One was the COA, and another one was the opening up a medicinal marijuana. That was hard because I am for medicinal marijuana, but I learned that they wanted to grow the plants here at the same place indoors, and I was very much against that.
Why?
Why? Because I didn't think it was safe. Okay. I didn't know if smells would come out. I have no idea exactly how that's run, but I was against it. And that's the only reason I voted no for the medicinal marijuana. Now, I know they had another vote, and I know it was on the ballot.
It was a ballot question,
so,
right.
Yeah, and I know all that, but like I said, that was one of the things that I was really against. There haven't been that many that we didn't agree on. We disagreed maybe about it in a closed door session, but then we saw each other's points That was one thing with the council. It looked as though we always did what everybody else, what the mayor or somebody wanted us to do, but it wasn't, because in the closed sessions, we argued, but we put a united front when we came out.
And did that change over the years? I guess your team was reelected, so I guess
Four
you
times.
were elected 4 times.
I was elected 4 times, yes.
And some of the people changed during that time. It wasn't the same from your first run till later. Did you find that over time you all became more comfortable with each other?
We did. And we knew basically how each of us felt. The old timers, like Chris and I were the oldest ones on the council. Mayor Siciliano and I were the oldest 2 on the council. And then the next one was, in longevity, was Dave Hires, there for a while, but he was only on one full term with me. And he stepped down, and I don't even remember who was put on in his place. Bill Garofalo was put on in his place. That was it. And then Bill Garofalo ran for a full term, and he stepped down. And Johnny Napolitano was put on in his place.
I see. And did you feel that, and this might be a difficult one to answer, did you feel that as a woman you were right there in the middle of things, or did you feel that you had to maybe explain yourself more or find other allegiance?
I was treated with respect most of the time. I did have different viewpoints. Lost most of those things most of the time when my viewpoint was different from the men. But I was respected. I do have to say I was respected.
If a young woman, we'll say somebody in high school or college, came to you and said, my dream is to grow up and to serve my town, my state, the United States, what kind of advice would you give to them?
You have to have a hard shell, because you have to fight to get to where you are more so than the men do.
You do think that?
I do think that still.
And do you grow that shell, or does it slowly build up by itself?
I guess it builds up by itself. It was hard. It grew up. I guess it came little by little each year. Yeah, I would say it did.
So what do you hope for the Township of Ocean? I know you still live here. People do retire and move other places. But in 20 years, what would you like to see for the better in the township?
I would like to see Ocean Township being taken care of better, have more people involved in Ocean Township, not just complaining about things, but hoping to do things for Ocean Township. The town needs volunteers. You need volunteers here at the museum.
That is true.
Everybody needs volunteers, and as I've gotten older, the volunteerism for Ocean Township, I guess like a lot of other towns, has gone down. You don't have that neighborhood type of climate anymore. I mean, my neighborhood it's relatively big, I agree, but people move in and out of there like in the middle of the night, it seems. Because the next day we see a dog that we haven't seen ever before. And we never saw the person walking that dog. And that's what's becoming a problem. And the kids, they don't go outside anymore and play like they used to. And know the kid. They know kids from the school, and that's it. And they get together and they play their games, or they do something, but they do it indoors. They aren't outside. Even during the summers, they aren't outside. And that's something that I think that makes a town. And that's one of the problems we had with the Memorial Day Parade. We brought it back, and it was running smoothly for 4, 5, 6 years. And then all of a sudden, nobody was watching it anymore. Mm-hmm. They weren't standing outside there watching it because they were at the beach or they were inside, whatever. And I think that that's one thing that has to be, and I don't know how to do it, to get people to volunteer and to come out and support things.
Well, we hope for a new generation of Donna Schepigas coming to the picture.
I have one more thing I wanted to say that I missed. One of the big things that I worked on when I first came to Ocean, or when I first got involved with Ocean Township, was with the Italian American Association. And at the time, it wasn't Community Celebration Committee. It was just the township. Mm-hmm. And Mary Pat, and the Italian American Association, put on a quincentennial, a 500 years
That's right.
celebration of Columbus's landing. And they put a monument down in front of what used to be the library. And that was
on the town hall.
Town hall property. And that was sculpted by a gentleman from Monmouth County by the name of Medervini, and he also did the big eagle sculpture up in the Atlantic Highlands after 9/11. Ah. And that is one thing. But doing the monument and we had a little parade for Columbus Day, and that plus. Right after that, or right before it, Mary Pat did her Centennial Garden there with the clock tower and all that stuff, and then burying stuff to be opened in, I think we have another 30 years before we can open it.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, something like that.
The date's on there. But
yeah, I know. I don't remember either, but I walk by it all the time I used to, and I don't remember it. But that was fun. That was something that was left over from the other council that we carried on and keep that nice and clean and benches clean and painted and the clock working. And
I've seen any number of weddings take place there.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I even officiated it when I was there.
So, yeah.
So that's a good memory.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's very pretty. And the other thing that happened while I was there was we had a little room upstairs that we used to hold our council meetings in. And you used to hold your Board of Adjustment meetings and your planning board meetings in it. And when the library moved out to this big, beautiful building they built, we got the downstairs. And it's beautiful down there. And it's enjoyable.
Accessible.
Yep, very accessible. And it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was very nice. That was nice to have done, and it was right as we were coming, right after we came in, that stuff started.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, Donna, I thank you so much for all you've done, all the volunteerism you've shown, your great sense of community pride, and I am really proud to know you and call you a friend.
Thank you very much, and same here.
So this is the end of this. I wish you good luck, and soon we'll have another edition of Hometown Histories.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.